call to order the September 11th meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Let's start by giving the mic to Kevin for a moment.
We lost one of our commission members recently, Louisa Varnum. I just wanted to say a couple words about her. Louisa was very kind and extremely knowledgeable, and she's going to be a great loss for this commission, not only this commission, but an even greater loss for the community as a whole and for all that knew her. I'd like to call for a moment of silence. Thank you.
I'd like to start with an item of continued business, a notice of intent from the Markley Group, project location 2 Prince Avenue, 1 Markley Way. Good evening.
Good evening. Peter, how do I get this up? Can everyone see it? Perfect. My name is Anna John, and I'm a civil engineer with Stantec. I'm joined tonight by Tony Mora, also with Stantec, and Devin Cutchins and Lee Cleveland of the Markley Group. I'm here to provide an update on the plan that we presented on at the last hearing for the generator yard NOI filing. So this is the same graphic that you saw last time. This is just a colorized version of the site plan. And when we were here last month, we received some feedback about the drainage and the layout that we had, which had 3 proposed structures within the 25-foot riverfront area. And we understand the Commission's concern about really reducing the impact within the 25-foot area. So we did go ahead and remove the bypass line, and we also redesigned the 30-inch drain replacement so that there's only one structure, and it is very minimally invasive within the 25-foot riverfront area. So that updated plan is here on the screen. It'll just be the 30-inch pipe replacing the existing, which is in need of repair. And there will be a couple of 45-degree bends to get it back on the existing alignment and maintain the existing outlet at the river wall. So we feel that this has addressed the Commission's concerns, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
To me, this addresses the comments that that we made from the last meeting. Thank you for addressing those and revising your plan. Does any of the Commission have any other comments?
I do not.
Okay. I believe that there may be some members of the public that would be interested in speaking on this matter. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like we have 2 or 3 people on Zoom, and then if anyone's in person, obviously you're welcome to speak.
Anybody want to go first?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Coles, and I'm here representing a community of people. I am not the most experienced or learned individual about conservation, but it has been brought to my attention, and I'm here as a physical representation of that community. There are some folks who are on Zoom and who could not be here today. But what I did want to mention is that, and I do live within the area. I'm not in a butter or any of that, but I do live within the area. And I just wanted to mention that the City of Lowell states that we are an environmental justice community, and that the City of Lowell did promise to be carbon neutral by 2030, and that if it's possible, there should be a comparison study about using batteries on the site for backup power versus diesel generators. I do believe that this was brought up in the past, and I'm just here to bring it up again. I am not as learned on the subject of what happened in New Hampshire. I was not here, I was not present, I did not see the news, I'm only going by rumors. But I also understand that there may be some water receptacles that may be going in here that may be causing I consider it possibly a conservation or a community challenge, since I'm living in the area, if there may be a potential for any disease spreading activity, any disease spreading nuisances, I guess I'll say, within the vicinity. And if there's anyone that is on Zoom that can speak to that a little better than I can, then I have just primed the way for you to be able to speak. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi there, this is Jake Forts at 36 Iowa Street in Lowell, South Lowell. I'm a south side abutter to them. And I think basically what Jacqueline was talking about there is more of like the concern about the tanks, which fall within the purview of the commission. I think that's where she was at with that. But the outflow pipe that they were talking about there and the change to it. Now, the last meeting, I thought that it was supposed to be on the inside of the wall, that the retaining wall that they were building, or like some sort of construction wall that was going to be between that equipment well and the, what do you call it, and the brook. And this diagram still shows it being on the outside of that. So I thought you wanted it moved within that. So that was my only kind of concern or question, because you didn't want them going behind the wall or constantly disturbing that area along the brook. So I don't see that that modification was actually completed with the latest plan. So I'm a little confused on that. Maybe somebody could shed light on that.
I'm happy to. The request from the commission was that if there was a change in the angle of the pipe through another structure, that structure potentially be moved to the high side of the retaining wall. In the case that was presented, that those two alternative, or I guess extra structures in this case, on the low side of the wall were removed entirely. In any case, the pipe needs to run from point A start to point B finish. And so the point B finish is on the downside of the retaining wall. It needs to daylight out where the other existing pipe does. So there was expectation from the commission that there would be some work on the downhill side of the retaining wall. This minimizes it and thus satisfies our comments. Anybody else? So, there was a lot of pieces of information, Jacqueline, in the points that you brought up. I don't know how to enforce any of those through the Mass Wetland regulations, which is what we are here to do. The change of this work substantially is the replacement of a pipe. And we have protected the wetlands through the best of our ability using the tools that we have. As far as the other items, I mean, it's really nothing in our purview, and I don't, not to question their validity or lack thereof whatsoever, but those are not things that I and we can deal with here. Sure.
Hello? I'm sorry to interrupt you. My name is Eileen Castle, and I did sign up, but I had trouble getting my audio to work. Could I make a couple of comments?
Of course.
So I have questions. I live at 64 Otis Street on the corner of Owen and Bourne. And where I live, it slopes down from Agawam Street to Andrew Street, down to Bourne Street, and then all the water, when it rains, flows all the way down to the lower level, which is Markley. And they've been trying for years to stop this water flow, and I would like to know what effect that is going to have draining into the pipes that are going to be there or into the brook. And no one seems to be able to pay attention to that. We need to have some information. And I'd like to know what the Conservation Commission has implemented to protect us up here from all of this stuff. There's no way for us to do anything about it. This keeps happening. And all of these things we keep asking questions about, and we don't get anywhere. So I'm trying to find out what can be done to take care of this issue. Markley can't take care of it because the water keeps flowing down there, and they keep trying to tell everybody that everything is just fine. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, and I apologize. But I would like someone to look at these things and see the grading up here and how all this happens and where all this water is going. I mean, you're talking about water that comes from everywhere. So, I mean, it's not clean water. I'm sure of that. So I want to know what we can do. Thank you.
So, your comments seem to largely speak to an area of water runoff largely not associated with the Markley property. And so their property, their improvements on their property are designed to infiltrate more water on site than previously, which is a requirement of any approval that would come from this board. The pipe that is in discussion is strictly to provide an overflow outlet for the rain event with so much water that it cannot be handled on site, which is a standard civil engineering design. We can't expect someone to just infiltrate endless amounts of rainfall. This is a system designed for the X-year flood.
100-year.
A 100-year flood is the amount of rain. So once every 100 years, this site will not be able to infiltrate all the water that falls on it. As far as the global picture, it certainly has no bearing on the item at hand, but I'm not questioning its validity. There are lots of places in the city that experience flooding and water issues, and I don't know the specifics of this area as well as some other ones. But I would like to learn about it. My contact can be provided through the office. I'm happy to hear what you have to say, Eileen. That's about all I can offer at this point.
Can I say something else?
Of course.
So these added generators, what is that going to, is that going to affect the land over there and everything else in the water, the brook?
So we do a pre-construction and a post-construction stormwater model, and that model takes into effect the impervious cover across the site. So when you look at the existing conditions of the site and then the proposed conditions, which Bradley mentioned, we are adding or have added 3 infiltration systems. 2 of them are subsurface and 1 of them is a surface basin, along with many water quality units to treat any TSS, so suspended solids that are in that runoff in the rain events. The flow that leaves the site during all storm events evaluated, which are the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year. The flow leaving the site in the post-construction condition is less than that in the pre-construction condition, significantly so, and that's in the stormwater report that was filed with the commission. And this project scope is simply repair work. There is an existing 30-inch pipe there today that has some significant cracks along the top, so we are simply seeking to repair it before it would fail.
Are there any other public comments? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A motion for the project?
I'll make a motion to grant the project a standard, City of Lowell standard order of conditions.
Second?
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Next up, we have an enforcement order open against Berkeley Development, 129 Llewellyn Street and 115 Christian Street. We've gotten word from the Mass DEP that a superseding order of conditions for this property has approved it and overruled our decision, which makes our enforcement order null and void. And we have no other option but to rescind this order. So a motion?
I'll make a motion to rescind this enforcement order.
Second?
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good luck with your project. Thank you. New business. Lex Estates LLC, 394 Lowell Street, Lexington, Mass. 02420. Mass DEP file number 206-0833. Project location 63 Chambers Street. A notice of intent has been filed by Lex Estates to demolish the existing structures and construct 2 new 3-unit buildings at 63 Chambers Street. The subject property is located in the traditional multifamily TMF zoning district. Portions of the work will take place within the 100-foot buffer zone of Hales Brook. We have a presentation for us. Here you go.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering and Surveying, 10 George Street in Lowell, Mass. We're here this evening on behalf of Lexington Development, who owns the property under an LLC, for the redevelopment of the existing property located at 63 Chambers Street. If folks are not familiar with this property, there's 2 City of Lowell properties on either side of the property. One of which, this property here, there's an entire playground that's there. There's basketball courts, I believe tennis courts, walking paths, open space, and then there's additional open space over here. This is Chambers Street, and this is Kinsman Street. The parcel is 7,126 square feet. Existing today is 2 existing storage facilities. The garages, they're just used for a multitude of different uses. Some people store things in them. Some of them have vehicles in them. And those 2 buildings are here. There essentially is approximately 12 storage units or garages that consist of the 2 buildings. The property gently grades to the rear of the property, and to the rear we have the River Meadow Brook. The River Meadow Brook is also known as Hales Brook. It has a defined bank, which we've located here through the services of Norse Environmental, who are wetland botanists. They're out of Dracut, Mass. They used to be out of Tingsboro. They recently moved their office to Dracut. And that's shown here as the actual bank, which we're taking a 25-foot riparian zone off of that bank, which is protected under the Wetlands Protection Act. And then we also have a 100-foot buffer bordering, we'll call it a bordering vegetative wetland buffer to that bank, which is out here. And then there's also a 50-foot no build that the city has for newly created lots or new buildings. So our buildings are here. This one's 6.1 feet off of the property line to the closest point of this building here, and then this is also paved. So right now it's in its present condition. The runoff of the entire parcel flows untreated to the River Meadowbrook. There's also a FEMA line, which is your bordering land subject to flooding line, which runs here, and that's shown as a line here, which is also has an associated elevation with it, which is 82. And that line is identified here.
While we're talking about existing conditions, who owns the slope?
That's a good question. That's the city of Lowell, my understanding. I just know where our property ends. I didn't do further research on the other side of the property. There's an interesting piece of property on the other side. I don't know if you've been down there. There's a residential home that doesn't look like it belongs, but it's a very nice property. It looks like from an age gone by, but they have a fairly extensive property on the other side, and I believe that they actually own to this point here, but it may also be owned by the city of Lowell. But we're not going to be doing anything on this embankment. In fact, if you go down there, you'll notice, for the most part, the entire brook's been man-made in some fashion. In different areas of it, there's man-made walls to channelize the flow. I honestly do not know the history of the forming of that brook. But we also have there's an actual defined part where it varies, which we're showing also here. So there's an embankment, it's vegetated. We've done a test hole on the property. It's predominantly fill on the property, and that's shown here, and we utilize that to ensure that the drainage system has a soil test within it, so we know where the seasonal high groundwater is related to the system itself. That was also witnessed by the city of Lowell for that soil test, and that was logged by Norse Environmental, being the soil evaluator for that. There's also a defined tree line here.
The reason I was asking about the slope is because he and I have spent a lot of time cutting the bittersweet out of those trees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
A labor of love. And you really got to get at the roots if you really want to get it. But I don't profess to be an expert in the removal of bittersweet, but I know it's very difficult. We're doing one in Billerica, and it seems like it just keeps popping up. Yeah. I'll have to ask you about that. It's usually chemical based. Yeah. So we've been before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we've been through the Planning Board, obtaining all the necessary permits in that regard before filing the notice of intent. And those permits were for a, I'm going to put up this plan, it's just colored, just for ease of looking at generally what we're looking at here, is to do 2 townhouse buildings, either in the same footprint or less than what the existing impervious footprint was prior. So you can see here that the existing building was here. We pulled it back, and then these 2 buildings are aligned. There was a, you have to be 3 feet off of the lot line for a multifamily building, which this would be for 3 units. And there's 2 townhouses shown here. There's also an edge of pavement that's shown here. And again, the existing pavement's here, so we're pulling that pavement back. So we're doing less impervious overall for the development. And then we're showing this area to be restored in the way of the trees that have been put in this plan to restore that area. That's the general layout of the project. Sorry about that. In order to comply with the stormwater management regulations and the stormwater checklist to the extent practicable, we've come up with this treatment train of drainage and best management practices in order to provide an increase in water quality, water recharge, as well as meeting the other pre-post requirements and the reduction of that, and through redevelopment to come up with this treatment train, which essentially provides there's a center swale that'll come to a catch basin that's going to have an oil water separator within the catch basin itself. So the catch basin sits on top of a oil water separator, which essentially takes the total suspended solids out of 3 chambers within the system before it gets outletted from that system. That oil water separator is located here, and there's a detail on the detail sheet. Then the overflow comes into a subsurface infiltration system with an outlet to a 15-foot long by 2-foot wide by 3.5-foot deep level spreader. So that way, if the system can't handle the larger flows, it has a way for it to exit out of the system through this and then overland flow down towards the stream after the water's been treated. This system also takes the roof runoff from both buildings. And these are the utilities servicing the units. This plan here is the erosion and sedimentation control plan, which shows protection of the systems during construction. Excuse me. There'll be a silt sack put in over the installed oil water separator system to prevent any additional runoff that comes off the site during construction. And there's an erosion and sedimentation control put around the property, and that's going to be straw wattle, and there'll be silt fencing as well. And those details are here. The detail sheet has the oil water separator here, system, as well as the details for the subsurface infiltration system. Additionally, for meeting the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act, we're also in need of providing an alternatives analysis. And that alternatives analysis is in our narrative in the Notice of Intent report. And there's essentially 4 alternatives that we came up with for the site. And that this is required for doing work in proximity to the 25-foot riparian setback to the river itself. One is to not change anything, to leave the site as it is, and to continue using those buildings as storage containers or garages, of which we feel as though that alternative is the least desirable because of there's no regulations or controls over what's being done in those buildings today. I can say that being on site, there doesn't seem to be any gross contamination or anything generating from those uses, which tend to be light industrial. But that's the first alternative. The second is to redevelop the property utilizing the existing slabs and just rebuild on top of those footprints themselves. Again, it has similar issues in the way that the redevelopment on those existing slabs could be facilitated through a building permit, which may not require doing the controls of best management practices on which we're proposing here, but it could impose some of those best management controls, but not to the extent that we are right now through this notice of intent. The third alternative would be to redevelop the storage garages into townhouses with no stormwater management installed and leaving the site untreated to the stream. And then the fourth is the current plan that we have, which is what I feel is a vast improvement for all the goals that we're trying to achieve, which are all outlined in the stormwater checklist, of which were excuse me. Which we're reducing the pre versus post runoff. We're meeting the groundwater recharge requirement for 1 inch of impervious for the recharge being proposed for the cumulative volume. And we are also meeting the water quality. And there's going to be a vast improvement to the contributing runoff that goes to the brook with it being treated. Additionally, we're providing a restoration to the buffer zone and pulling the project back from the resource area itself and providing restored vegetation that'll actually be managed through the homeowners association and through the operation and maintenance plan of this notice of intent filing for the stormwater report, for the continued maintenance of those best management practices in the way of sweeping the drive, cleaning out the oil water separator, and periodic inspection of the observation port, which has been shown in the design of the infiltration system in order to ensure that the system is maintained through the longevity of this property moving forward, which is now becoming a much higher priority for cities and towns to maintain these operation and maintenance plans. The operation and maintenance plan also will be part of the homeowners association for the townhouse development, so it will be incorporated into that document, so that it will be a requirement of the whole property as a whole. And I can answer any questions from the commission related to the project.
So, I don't really consider this to be something that the footprint is grandfathered in. This is a substantially larger building with a much bigger foundation. I'm sure that if there's any footings on these, they're just, the bare minimum you need to get down below frost. You certainly also don't have a grandfather in of a stormwater system inside the 25-foot buffer. I would, if it was my choice alone, I would request substantial revisions to this plan that pull this out of the 25-foot buffer.
Well, there's a vast improvement to that 25-foot buffer.
Yeah, but it's a no build for a reason.
In the past, the commission has allowed buildings within the 50-foot as long as it's no closer than the existing buildings.
Yeah, I agree. I have no problem with you building inside the 50 foot. I do have a problem with the construction you planned inside of the 25 foot. The stormwater system certainly isn't grandfathered into the footprint of the existing buildings.
But typically, drainage systems are allowed within the inner riparian zones.
The 25 foot buffer is a no touch, no build, no work planned within 25 foot. That is our standard policy here. 50 foot is where we encourage the buildings to go. In this case, the buildings are certainly, much closer to the river. I understand reducing that in this project and talking about the 25 to 50 foot area. But inside of the 25 foot, I mean, this is a substantial increase in size and structure. I don't consider this to be a grandfather situation. This is a different use, entire project, entirely different project altogether.
But the proposed buildings are smaller in aggregate than the total buildings that are there now.
Yeah. So
it's not.
You have reduced the length of one of them, but you've replaced it by adding more work inside of the 25 foot via the stormwater zone.
Yeah, that's true, and we're restoring a significant amount of area within that 25 foot. So we would think that the commission would recognize this as a vast improvement of what's in the 25 foot today, which by pulling back the pavement that's in the 25 foot, pulling back the building significantly that was in the 25 foot, and doing a restoration plan within that 25 foot, and utilizing a portion of that 25 foot to facilitate all the best management practices that are being incorporated into this.
I mean, whether it's 10 or 12 units that you're building on this site, we would never approve it without you doing all that work anyway. Houses of any scale, this entire site needs to be touched in order to build this many houses. I don't feel like you have the room to build this many units. That said, let me open up for comments from the rest of the commission.
I'm just reading in the comments, it says the amount of impervious surface on the site will stay roughly the same. From your presentation, it looked like it was going to get less because you're pulling it back.
It is.
So the amount of impervious surface will be getting less.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's probably wider and shorter and nearly the same total area, but certainly further from the wetland area.
It'll be less area of impervious surface, and I can get you those numbers.
No, I'm sure that it needs to be, but
There's the units cannot get closer together, if that's your question. Right
Zoning
now,
won't allow.
what's that?
The zoning won't allow.
Yeah, no, this plan's been vetted out by the fire department, the engineering department, the stormwater team within the city. We've had multiple meetings, multiple discussions, multiple comments from the municipal departments within the city of Lowell that have come up with this being the plan that was approved by them prior to coming here.
And there's 6 total units that
There's
you're,
6 total units, that's correct.
just seems like a lot for that plot.
Isn't it 6 on each side?
No, there's 3 on either side. Like I said, this is,
Oh, I thought there were duplexes.
Right,
That-
I was under the impression there were duplexes too, so it's 6 total units?
yes, there's 2 3-unit buildings.
Okay.
And the density, excuse me,
Got
the
it.
density did come up at prior hearings. That was all vetted out through the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, who approved this development through the decisions which have been part of the filing.
I mean, you know as well as I do that this, sometimes you get to Conservation Commission and they change your plan. I mean, that happens, so.
Well, that's
like,
why we get those other permits first.
Yeah, it doesn't negate the responsibility of our commission.
I'm not here to tell the commission what they're supposed to do. I'm just telling you what we've done up until now. And, you know, the Wetlands Protection Act is clear on obtaining all prior local permits prior to filing the notice of intent, because they don't want to issue an order of conditions, then have that plan changed through another board action. So that's the main reason why that's there. And it's always been my understanding of a redevelopment that you're just making the project better from what is there today. And that's what we've been aiming to achieve with this project in terms of this work. We've also have been talking to the city about improving the open space next to this property as well, which we're going to be implementing some of those trees that are available to the city. And while we were there, we were going to add some trees to the vacant open space property immediately. If you're facing the property to the right, which would be the westerly side. So that's been part of the conditions of the permits that we've received by the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. We're doing what we thought was everything we possibly could to enhance the property, not make the property worse than the way that it is now. And we thought that this was a plan that achieved all that in lieu of leaving the buildings and having essentially a storage facility on these properties, which has been the case for decades. So.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion remains the same. I don't think it's, yes, of course, this is an improvement to what exists now, but we have our guidelines for a reason here. And we need to set a clear precedent of what can and cannot be constructed within a certain distance to the wetland in order to make it clear for developers like yourself to follow. I mean, you know very well what our intent and typical regulations are here.
I'm just trying to
So-
get my bearings on this. So, if we were to go with the 25-foot no build, there's only one building that comes within that.
It clips the corner, right. And I'd also like to note that we're not cutting any trees down. We're developing on a property that's completely developed.
And I'm also concerned about the snow storage that's also within the 25-foot buffer zone. Is that correct?
There's a small portion that's in the 25, but the majority of it is outside of the 25-foot.
So what happens when that melts from that location?
It gets infiltrated into the vegetative material that's there. It actually I forgot to note one thing, Bradley. It actually pitches back to the catch basin. There's a spot grades there, and it's meant to flow back to the oil water separator.
Good answer. Thank you.
That did come up. We had that discussion with the stormwater team as well.
Awesome.
For me, it's a tough decision because this is obviously such an improvement to what we're looking at as an existing lot, a fully developed, like you mentioned, existing lot. And when I see projects like that, I have a hard time, even if it's, within that 25 foot, when it's obviously an improvement to the city and what's there. These are things that I think we might have to take into consideration when we look at the sites.
I would agree. I think I'm looking at it from the perspective that it's existing buildings, an existing lot. Certainly, our existence is to protect that 25-foot buffer zone and the resource. That's our existence. That's what we do. But this is an existing building. None of these buildings, the buildings that are there, do they have any type of foundation, or are they just on slab?
Oh, they're frost wall with slabs.
Okay.
That's my understanding. I haven't dug up
Sounds reasonable.
So they're not, the roof lines aren't moving, which would be the case if it had what we would call a haunch slab, where you do a slab and you do a little bit of a foundation on the side. You see
Right.
that sometimes for outbuildings, but it's my understanding that there's a frost wall for these.
And this water oil separator, this unit, what's the life expectancy on that and the maintenance required on it?
The life expectancy is, I don't know.
As long as concrete lasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's under an operation and maintenance plan. It's going to be incorporated in the HOA, and it's going to need to be replaced over time.
Well, that would be a concern then, just to, make sure that that's properly tended to if this
Yeah.
gets approved, because that at least would purify or filter the water that goes into the stream.
Correct.
How about the shrubbery you're going to put in the back? You said there's some trees, you're going to put some trees. Can you be more specific to that?
Well, we have them as, we have 3 shade trees and 2 shrubs, bushes that we were going to put there, and we typically work with the Department of Planning and Development on the choice of the trees they'd like to see in those areas. So that's the plan right now for those trees. We could enhance, most certainly, and come up with a more robust landscaping plan if that helps turn the tide with what we're doing within that 25-foot area, and to provide more restoration that currently is not there, in the way of improving the quality of that 25-foot area to benefit the brook, the nearby brook.
And to absorb more of the water or snow melt, et cetera.
Well, that's actually, like I had mentioned before, it sits at the end and then it flows back to the oil water separator.
Okay.
We could, so if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's.
Being an NOI, we do need to open this up for public comment. A motion?
Could I add one thing, sorry?
Of course.
Before you do that?
Sure.
We had no comments from DEP. So we do know that these projects, would receive comments typically, especially being near the brook, from DEP, that would need to be addressed, because we commonly see that the letter of interventions are incorporated through DEP after an order of conditions has been issued, and in this case, there was no comments. So just wanted to add that. And a DEP file number has been issued.
A motion to open up for public comment?
Second.
I can't make the motion.
Yeah, I don't.
We need a motion to open?
Yeah, I don't think we need.
We don't need a
just
motion
open
to
it up.
open.
Okay, sorry. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, hearing none.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Does anyone want to make a motion on this project?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an improvement, so I'll make a motion to grant standard, City of Lowell standard order of conditions for this project.
I'm going to second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
So that would pass 'cause the majority?
Yes,
Okay,
you've
well, thank
passed.
you very much, everyone.
Yep, thank you. Next up, we have a request for a determination of applicability. CJ Field, Inc., project location 181 Stedman Street. Thank you. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by CJ Field, Inc. to repave an existing parking area. The proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone of a protected wetland. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Carl Bahia, representing CJ Field. First of all, sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I don't have many questions. I think you have questions for us. Just trying to repave, reclaiming, and putting pretty much same square footage down. We have a wetlands issue. I don't know if you guys took into consideration the height. I don't know if that is a consideration, because it's below us probably 50 to 60 feet. We have a steep runoff, and we abut the old landfill, and so it's a communal runoff. Boom. And to be honest, this is the first I've ever heard of this, a wetland. So it's kind of, oh, all right. I thought it was just a little collection down there that no fish or ducks land in. So that's my take on it. And what do you think?
So what do you plan to do to prevent runoff from going into the wetland?
We have, as in the proposal for the family paving, they're going to do a Cape Cod berm all around the perimeter. And we have 6 basins, collection basins for the stormwater. Everything coming off the roof goes into the ground out. So we're pretty much dry within an hour of any storm. Yeah.
And you said it's about 60?
Yeah, it drops pretty quick. I mean, yeah.
Because it's about 34 feet.
Yeah, if you're looking
distance.
straight out, and there was a pole, but that seems to be a little tight too. But I mean, it drops. It's crazy drop.
So the area you're paving, is it just replacing the exact area? So you're not changing footprint or anything?
Nope. Not at all.
And you're removing the old pavement?
Yeah, we're gonna bring up the grade because so quick story, the building itself was built on pillars and pylons, and underneath is all sand, so it does tend to creep down a bit, which is a pain in the butt. So every 15 years, we gotta do a little bringing up. So it's sunk about 1.5 feet, so we're gonna reclaim all that stuff and then bring it up a bit.
I mean, the main intent for you to be in front of us here is to make sure that any times of site destabilization, that you're not getting soils into the wetlands.
Yep.
Right? So I think with its proximity that if you could provide some sorry, it's been a long day. Wattles. What am I trying to? What's the word?
Straw wattles.
I'm on a blank right now. Yeah.
You got it.
I knew you were gonna say like a silt fence or something, but it's literally, I mean, yeah, I could, how close? Yeah, I probably have a flat of 6 feet before we get, so I can put up a,
Yeah, just put it in before that drop off.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Absolutely.
I mean, the other option is to, pick a time that you know it's not going to rain.
Yeah.
This is probably only a day's work, right? Rip and replace in a day. Maybe it's top coat the second day.
Yeah, they're picking 2 weekends because of the parking lot naturally.
Okay.
So yeah, so I can.
Oh, if it's over 2 weekends, then I think
Yeah.
the best idea is to.
Right. So what do you recommend, the
I think
barrels
straw
or the
wattles are
haze?
fine here. I mean,
Sit wall?
any erosion control, that's as far as I need.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to grant this project a -3 designation, or determination, excuse me.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, a request for determination of applicability. James Buckley, 70 Carmine Street. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by James Buckley to demolish an existing deck and construct a new expanded deck within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands. Anybody here for this project? 70 Carmine?
I don't know if Fran sent this over to you guys, but I guess they're withdrawing.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're selling the house.
Yeah, got it. So, I think we need to close, or
Do we need to?
we can issue a positive determination. I don't want to end up screwing them if they come
This-
back around, but
Should have just been taken off the agenda.
Yeah, so the real estate agent came in, if today's Wednesday, then it was yesterday. Sorry, the Tuesdays are long. And that's when we found out that they didn't want to go forward anymore. I guess they had sold the house fairly quickly. They moved out of state. And,
They've already sold the house.
yeah, or it was in closing, but
Yeah, they're not gonna be coming back.
I don't think, do we need to do anything to this?
I don't really know the process of this, to be honest.
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
All right.
I think it was
Let it be then.
withdrawn.
Yeah.
So we don't
all
need to
right,
do
so
anything.
item withdrawn, moving on.
yeah.
Thank you. Request for determination of applicability. All matters general contracting, 170 Main Street, North Reading. Project location, 492 Boylston Street. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by All Matters General Contracting on behalf of James Abdu Haidar to construct a deck within the 100-foot buffer zone of a protected wetland. Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Alisson. Again, sorry for your loss. I'm here representing All Matters General Contracting regarding 490 Boylston Street. We are proposing to demo the existing deck and build a new one. And for that, we need to come up to the code and need to dig new footings there. So we are at around 88 feet from the buffer zone. So, sorry. So we need to probably use some erosion control as we've done before in other projects. So usually use straddle waters or silt fences, or maybe both at the same time. Usually we do that. And that's it. I don't know if we have any.
How many new footings are you putting?
Sorry?
How many
Probably,
new foot?
3 or 4, maybe, depends on how the.
I mean, at 80 feet from the wetlands, I don't think any soil is going to make it there. I have no issues.
I don't either.
A motion?
Make a motion to grant a -3 determination to the project.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
you, sir.
Ready to proceed.
All right, next up, an emergency certificate for the City of Lowell, project location Circuit Ave and Felton Street. The City of Lowell DPW has requested an emergency certificate to create a small breach in a beaver dam to allow water to flow and abate a flooding emergency. The approval will not allow for a whole dam removal. There was notes on this one, wasn't there? Something in our inbox today?
Looked like.
Yeah, I guess they
find
didn't.
Didn't do anything?
Yeah, they didn't actually end up doing the beaver dam work, so.
So are they withdrawing their request for an emergency certificate, or are we ratifying it in case they go back tomorrow and find a beaver?
Yeah,
How
that's
about
strange because they also had one in August too, right? That was essentially the same thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's consider this withdrawn then.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
It didn't happen.
All right, last up, a request for a certificate of compliance. New England Power Company, NEP, 170 Data Drive, Waltham, Mass. Mass DEP file number 2060812. Project location J162 transmission line right-of-way. The applicant is seeking a certificate of compliance for a project that received an order of conditions in March 2022. The project consisted of the installation of optical ground wire, structure replacements, and access road improvements within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland, riverfront area, and 100-year floodplain. Is there anyone online to speak on this project?
Hi, I'm here. My name's Allison Milliman. I'm with BSC Group, and I'm here on behalf of New England Power to present the request for a certificate of compliance for the J162 project. So the project activities are completed. The site has been substantially restored, and for the commission's review, we've also provided an as-built plan and a stamped a floodplain replication plan by the landscape architect who designed it initially. So at this point, I'd like to take any questions or comments from the commission, please.
Can you just go into a little bit of detail on what was done on the project, just for the public?
Absolutely. So the purpose of the project was to do some upgrades and enhancements to the existing J162 transmission line. That include replacing existing structures, replacing overhead shield wire with optical ground wire, which allows for faster high-speed communications, installation of a new switch structure. They also completed some access road upgrades to allow them to respond quicker if there is an emergency or maintenance need along the line. We did have one larger foundation that needed to be placed within the BLSF zone. And for that, that's why there's a replication area within the same watershed and floodplain area that was designed by our landscape architect and completed by the contractor for this project. And also I'd like to say that, the entire right-of-way, at the most part, has been restored. It's fully vegetated, and I'd like to request a certificate of compliance for this work. Thank you.
It's right in my neighborhood. It looks good to me. Yeah, nice to see some nice thick vegetation of native plants already growing through there.
Yeah, the pictures look good. Looks like nice to see all the vegetation back and everything. So I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for the project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Good night.
Good evening. All right, we've got the 8-9 meeting minutes. Any comments?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I never read the schedule, but
I assume
it's the same schedule we've been using for.
the holidays is November, December is one meeting, August, July is one meeting, right? Okay.
We have to approve.
We should.
Motion to approve
We don't
the
have to.
2025 schedule.
Seconded.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any other comments from the gallery?
You? Make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.